So today, we're going to continue our look into relationship issues between characters in our books, okay? And when we use these, in this unit, we're using these relationships as windows to learn about, to see ways the characters change and identify themes that come through the book. So, in addition to looking at characters, like we did in the first unit, a deep study of character, in this unit we're kind of analyzing relationships as another window to see why authors may have written the books, what the big ideas are, and how we can become better at our own relationships in our own lives. All right? Now, last class, we looked at relationships and we analyzed them. We looked for actions, reactions, and inaction. So we looked at what people say or don't say, what they do or don't do, and how they react to things people say and do as a way to see who is responsible for issues when they come up in the story. Okay, so who contributes to the issue or problem more? What's the balance? Okay? Today, we're going to push that further. We're going to finish the story today. My side of the story with Will and Skip. We're going to finish that today. I'm going to read it to you. And today we're talking about power. Okay, so power and power imbalances in a relationship, and how that might affect the relationship. Okay? So I want you to think about one of your relationships now. It could be at home. It could be at school. But think about a relationship you have where the power is not balanced. Okay? So where one person in the relationship has more or less power than the other. Okay? Just keep that in your mind for a moment, right? Just think about it. Just think, right? Just think. Now tell the person next to you. You should be over there with your group, right? In eBay, you got to sit up next to those guys, right? Same level. And guys, I have like 80 hours of you on camera. There's no reason to hide from it right now. So turn and talk. What's the relationship you have in your life right now where the power is imbalanced? Like you and your parents, you and a friend, you and your swim teacher. No way.
Not necessarily. Because the principal and Joey's relationship.
Think about your own life.
In our own life, Mr. Berenger's relationship.
So, anybody want to share an example? Ethan.
Mr. Berenger and the students' relationship.
Okay, so your relationship with Mr. Berenger.
Yeah.
So there's a power imbalance there, right? Who has the power?
Mr. Berenger.
Right, well, he's the assistant principal, right?
He should have.
You are a student. Now, how does that imbalance of power, right, or that gap in power, how does it affect the way the school works, or the way you interact with each other?
Students can't, students are really more mature because of the imbalance of power.
Right, so you are with, someone who has power, an authority figure in the middle school, Okay, it affects the way you talk, the way you act, the way you sit, right? As if you were the same way that you guys act differently around parents and grandparents, right? So would you talk to your grandma the way you talk to your friends in the hallway? I doubt it. I've heard you talk in the hallway. If you talk that way in front of your grandma, I think you'd have a problem. Right? So, these imbalances of power, right, they affect what we say, what we do. And we're going to take this idea into the stories we read to help us analyze relationships. Okay, so we're going to get back into my side of the story. And just to catch you up, Will has run into his mom's room to tell on his brother, but it's not his mom waiting for him. Who's in there? Dad. Okay, so here we go. And then I realized that I was talking to my father, not my mother. In order to understand the enormity of the mistake I had made, you have to understand my father. My father was 5 feet 7.5 tall, stocky, powerfully built, and larger than life in laughter, strength, character, integrity, humor, appetite, wit, intelligence, warmth, curiosity, generosity, magnetism, insight, and rage. Consequently, he was not concerned with the little things in life, such as sibling shenanigans, rivalries, or disputes. His job, as he saw it, was to make us the best human beings we could be, to guide us, love us, and teach us the large laws of honor, courage, honesty, and self-reliance. He was the only man to turn to if you had a severed artery, broken ribs, or any serious disease or financial problems. But he was not the kind of man one would knowingly burst in upon, screaming anything less than, "The house is on fire," or "Somebody stole your car." I knew this, of course, which is why I had run to my mother's room in the first place, and why when I saw my father, most of the color drained from my face. My first impulse was to walk backward out of the room, closing the door gently before me as I did so. But I had shifted so suddenly from offensive indignation to defensive fear and astonishment that I felt a little disoriented. For a moment, I considered telling him that I smelled smoke or saw someone stealing the car. But I couldn't lie. I couldn't tell the truth either. In fact, for a moment, I couldn't speak. Okay, so my question to you now. Who's got the power in this relationship? Will and Dad. Who's got the power?
Dad.
Dad, right? How do we know? How does the author show us that Dad has the power? Because it's not a guarantee that the dad has the power in a father-son relationship. Right? There are situations where the child has more power than a parent. Right? So how do we know that Dad's the one with the power? What's the author do to show us that? Well, what jumped out at me was the description of Dad. How many adjectives do we have describing Dad? Right? Or describing how Dad is great. We got, it says larger than life in left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 words to describe Dad and his character. Right? So we know Dad is like a prominent figure in his family. Right? And rage. Rage. Right? That jumps out at me too. rage. Dad's not the kind of guy you bother with little problems. Right? So it's clear that Dad has the power. We know this because the author shows us, right, in his description of Dad. And also in Will's reaction. So what happens to Will when he goes into that room? He couldn't speak. The color drained from his face. Right? So this gap, this fear, has caused a physical change in Will. And he's stopped there. It's like he turns to ice. Right? Because of this power gap. Right? So we're going to move on. But this time I want you to think more about their power relationship and how it affects the relationship. Okay? Or the power imbalance, how does it affect the relationship? Alright? So, because in fact, for a moment, I couldn't speak. What the hell are you doing? My father said. I started to say, I was sitting at my desk, minding my own business, and I stopped. I stopped because I knew instinctively that Scotch tape on my head was not enough. Not nearly enough to warrant my wild, unannounced entrance into the room. When? What? Nothing. You ran in here screaming about something. What happened? You didn't what? I didn't know you were here. So what? You knew someone was here. What did Skip do? Skip, I was sitting at my desk and Skip what? Tell me. Put Scotch tape on my head. This apparently was all my father needed to set the wheels of his anger in motion. You came running in here without knocking because Skip put Scotch tape on your head? No, you didn't care that the door was closed? You didn't think that your mother might have been sleeping? I wanted to explain that this had been going on for years. That Mom and Skip and I had an understanding. But I knew that we weren't having a discussion. I also knew he was working himself into a rage, and that anything I said would only make it worse. Is that what you do? You run into rooms screaming? He was on his feet now and advancing toward me. You don't knock? No? Yes? At this point, my brother entered the room, saw what was happening, and stood transfixed. Here, my father said, here's what we do with Scotch tape. And with that, he pulled the whole wad off my head, along with 50 or 60 hairs. I knew that he was only a few seconds away from his closing arguments now. And my calculations were just about right. You don't ever come in here without knocking. Do you hear me? Silence. Do you hear? At this point, I heard a wheeze of escaping laughter where my brother was standing, and saw him run out of the room. Okay, now, let's think. I want you to turn and talk. How does this power imbalance play a role in this relationship? Right, so Will's dad just beat him up. Right, he ripped all the Scotch tape out of his head with almost all of his hair, and then he smacked him like 10 times. Okay? So how is the power imbalance connected to what just happened? Turn and talk.
His father is not only scary by his strong.
What do you think of that, Tina?
He aggressively hits their child very often. So that's what I think that
Are your parents like that? All right, guys. So what I heard, okay, generally, what I heard from you guys was real good. I heard that things like Dad has this power gap is so big that Dad can do whatever he wants. Right? He has like absolute power. And that means he can be hurtful and mean. It's almost like he's a bully and Will is the victim. Right? So this gap in power, Will is powerless. There's nothing he can do. Right? But Dad, he can beat up his kid. He can yell at him. And based on the way that Skip runs away, he's also probably taken a few shots from Dad, huh? What do you think? Do you think Skip saw what was happening and then just got out of there? Because he didn't want to get smacked? Probably, right? So, Will is powerless. Right? So this gap in power, right, has left Will with no way that he can, no way and no one to hold on to. Right? He's just at Dad's mercy. Okay, now as I finish the story here, I want you to think, what might this story teach us? Okay, so that's the question. What might this story teach us? So after I finish reading, you're going to turn and talk and answer this question. Also, you're going to hear the word trophy in the story. Do you know what a trophy is? It's like if you win something, like an award, you might, like if you win a sports award, you have a, so if you win a sports award, right, you get a trophy. At the bottom is like wood or rock, like stone. And then it has like a gold person on it in some sports pose. Right? Maybe you've received these, maybe not, but I think you've seen it before. That's going to come up in the end of the story. It's important that you know what it is. All right. So, Skip just ran out of the room. Dad says, "Do you?" "Yes, Pop, I hear you." "Are you going to come in here ever again without knocking?" No. "Ever?" "No." "Now get out of here." And I got out and heard the door slam behind me. There was not much to do after that, but sit at my desk and wonder what happened. I had been signing my name. Skip put scotch tape on my head. I ran to tell Mom, found Pop, and the lights went out. Where, I wondered, was the justice in that? Obviously, when I burst into my mother's room, I had entered a larger world of justice. A world where screaming, whining, mother dependence, not knocking on closed doors, and startling one's father were serious crimes. That part I understood. The part I didn't understand was the part about why my brother, who had started the whole thing by putting scotch tape in my head, hadn't been punished. So, in the interest of smaller justice, I picked up one of his old baseball trophies. and I wrestled the little gold-plated athlete off its mount. Right? So he took his brother's trophy and he broke it. Right? With a little luck, my brother would want to tell Pop about it. Let him. Okay? Turn and talk. What might the author be trying to teach us? Why is this in this book? Why did the author write this story? What's he trying to teach us?
To help you understand dangerous.
Right here, James. What does the story teach us? Okay. Oh yeah, like maybe Terrence's version of justice. What do you think? Good? Okay. Jim, you want to share? Okay, everyone listen to Jim, please. The story teaches us life is not fair. All right? Okay? I heard that's a good way to look at it. Another thing I heard was, I wrote it down here. You can't always get justice from your family, even when you deserve it. Right? So sometimes you get in trouble when you don't deserve it. Right? Yeah, in your family. Okay. So these were good things that I heard, because often when we ask this question, one of the challenges for students is that they cannot give an answer that goes beyond the text. So, for example, like I could ask this to a student and they might say, I say, what's the story teach us? And they say that Will shouldn't go into his mom's room. Right? Or that Skip is mean to Will. Something like that, right? But what I like about your answers is that they go beyond the book, right? I can apply that to my own life. I can think about, fairness and justice in my family and things like that. And that's what an author wants to teach us, right? That's what an author wants us to take from the book. Something that we can use in our own lives, right? To make our relationships more positive. Okay? So Will and Skip and Mom and Dad, they're just like a vehicle to help us get somewhere. There's some bigger understanding. Now, as you read today, I want you to think about power. Right? This is one more dimension, one more piece we're adding to help us analyze relationships in the story. Right? So, this group here, you can have the couch and carpet for beanbag today. Make sure you have your notebooks. The rest of you, go back to your tables. What's up, James? Hey, if you need a new book, just hang out here.
Let's see here.
Well, Mr. Okay, my friend.